with the assistance of the staff and the Deputy Public Protector, Advocate Galega, have concluded since the last briefing at the end of January 2020. Not only do we use these quarterly briefings to reveal our investigation findings, we also use this platform to educate communities about our mandate, role, and services. I will be revealing my findings in 35 investigations, including 13 matters. Apologies for that. My mic was off. We will be revealing my findings in 35 investigations, including 13 matters which we decided to close. These cover various themes, including executive ethics, undue delay, abuse of power, irregular staff appointments, procurement irregularities, and dishonest or corrupt acts. Not only is this our first briefing for 2020-2021 financial year, it is the first since Advocate Galega assumed duty at the beginning of February 2020. Once again, let me, on behalf of the Public Protector South Africa community, welcome you to the Team DPP. We are delighted to have you and look forward to tapping into your vast experience, extensive knowledge, and training to help us in our quest to take the services of this institution to the grassroots community. Although we have been part of, you've been part of us for just over 4 months now, I'm sure you have been able to feel the pulse of the institution and see for yourself the challenges that we face and the opportunities that lie in wait for us to exploit. I'm also certain that you see a different picture now that you did than what you did when you were outside the institution looking in. I'm also going to rely on you to help steer this ship. The complaints and stakeholder management and the administrative justice and service delivery, which we call AJSD branches, which are now under your supervision and as per your delegations, are the heartbeat of this institution. For the uninitiated, CSM is where all incoming complaints are registered and assessed for jurisdiction and merits before a decision to either investigate or refer to other institution is taken. AJSD, on the other hand, is concerned with administrative justice and service delivery complaints, including undue delays in the provision of public services. AJSD accounts for the bulk of our investigation caseload, of which are mostly bread and butter matters. It is in that branch that we are preoccupied with resolving complaints pertaining to civil service pensions, RDP housing, social grants, provision of water and electricity, unemployment insurance fund, compensation fund, public health care, public education and access to land, among many other issues. I have also allocated to you the mammoth task of presiding over all alternative dispute resolution sessions, through which a lot of the matters that come before us are resolved, as opposed to full-blown investigations which result in formal reports. I have no doubt in my mind that you are equal to the task and your support is appreciated, and we wish you all the best. This briefing comes at a time where, as a country, we are battling with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has taken hundreds of lives in the country and hundreds of thousands across the globe. Our hearts go out to those who have lost their loved one in these troubling times. We also take our hats off to the frontline workers under the shepherding of the Health Ministry and the government at large, who have effectively put their own lives on the line to save ours. Keep it up, and your selflessness has not gone unnoticed. In a scramble to contribute towards national efforts to keep the rate of infections as low as possible, we've also had to work differently in line with the national state of disaster regulations. We suspended walk-in at all our 19 offices across the country at the end of March 2020 and worked remotely following the declaration of the lockdown. However, as part of essential services, we carried on taking and processing complaints electronically. From the middle of May 2020, we've moved from working remotely to having a skeletal staff of up to 33% physically in the office. I wish to reiterate my call to all public servants to act responsibly during this time. The provision for emergency procurement following the declaration of the national state of disaster does not in any way suspend the Public Finance Management Act or the Municipal Finance Management Act. We do not wish to be inundated with unnecessary complaints about abuse of state resources. We have received a few complaints of alleged tender irregularities, and we have appointed a senior team to deal with these matters. The briefing also comes during Youth Month. I would therefore like to take this opportunity to implore the young people of this country to be vigilant and hold government to the undertakings it has made, especially those that are COVID-19 related. This includes the provision of food parcels, the 350 grant and relief grants for small, micro, medium enterprises. Hold your leaders to account. That is called active citizenry. However, I urge you to exhaust all available avenues before turning to the public protector, because we are a complaints body of last resort. We try not to do public servants' work. They are paid to perform that work. Only when they are failing to resolve your grievances will we step in. This is why we have been on a drive to encourage organs of state to establish internal complaints handling units, which must serve as the first port of entry. We are also in the process of developing an app which will help with the referrals and equip the public with information on who to turn to first before escalating to us. I further wish to record my disappointment that we seem to be losing the fight against gender-based violence. Instances of barbarism that is visited upon women by their male partners time and time again appear to be continuing unabated. It seems the relevant authorities are struggling to deal with this scourge. As a woman and a mother of a girl child, I cannot keep quiet. I call on all responsible authorities to protect us. We are dying. I now turn to the business of the day and indicate that there are 13 reports or closing reports which we have investigated, and these reports are closed because we simply couldn't find any maladministration, or we call them unsubstantiated. So these issues, as I've indicated above, they range from issues of ethics-related complaints, irregular appointments, and irregular utilization of resources. The first one relates to the complaint which we received from Mr. Jakala, where he was complaining about abuse of power by the executive mayor, the then executive mayor of the city of Tshwane, Mr. Ramkopa, and the then city manager, Mr. Mkhwebane. This matter has been closed because it is unsubstantiated. Another one is an investigation into allegations of procedural irregularities and victimization by the city of Tshwane again against Mr. Selby Bukaba, and I found that the city of Tshwane acted within the legal prescript, so this matter is closed. Another one is relating to a complaint by GA against the then Minister of Agriculture, Forest and Fisheries, Mr. Zokwane, that he misled and Parliament when he replied to a parliamentary question. This matter also was closed because it's unsubstantiated. The other investigation relates to the Western Cape MEC for Health, Noma French Mbombo, she received benefits of sponsorship for a special birthday celebration. This matter is also unsubstantiated. The investigation into allegations of maladministration and improper conduct in connection with master service agreement entered into between Eskom and McKinsey Company Incorporated, as well as payments made to Trillion Capital The matter has also been referred to the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. In addition, the High Court has declared that the decision to negotiate and conclude this agreement was unlawful and invalid, so the matter is closed. The investigation into allegation of maladministration, irregular procurement procedures, and nepotism in the implementation of drought relief interventions by the Free State Department of Rural Development and Land Reform. This report is also closed, is unsubstantiated. The investigation into allegation of failure by the Tembisile Ani local municipality in Mpumalanga to seek approval from the Manala Mapogo Traditional Council for the construction of Pola Mall is also closed, is unsubstantiated. The investigation into allegations of failure, undue delay, and maladministration by various departments to properly investigate or attend to complaints and subsequent appeals lodged by Mr. Langa on behalf of Valdane community against Ivan Plat's resources for the alleged unlawful mining. This report is also closed. The investigation into allegations of irregular and unlawful transfer of road traffic inspectors from the employ of the Cross-Border Road Transport Agency to the Road Traffic Management Corporation is closed. The investigation into allegation of improper conduct, abuse of power, and or maladministration during the investigation of Mr. Makwakwa's financial affairs by the Financial Intelligence Center and the South African Revenue Services. This matter is also closed, is unsubstantiated. The investigation into allegation that there was no proper process followed in respect of the application of the environmental authorization certificate issued in respect of the proposed construction of the Johannesburg East Electricity Supply Strengthening Project in Mpumalanga and Gauteng provinces. The next report, which is also closed, it relates to the maladministration, tender irregularities, as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure with regards to procurement of a service provider to design and develop an integrated website for the Free State provincial government. Another report which is closed, it relates to an investigation of maladministration, corruption, and entrenchment of monopolies in the 25-year-long contract between Trusted and Anglo subsidiary Kumba. The contract was allegedly signed by Ms. Ramos in 2005. This matter has been closed because the allegations are unsubstantiated. Although the allegations were not substantiated and there was accordingly no remedial action taken in this matter, I hope that Transnet ensures that their long-term strategic supplier relationship objectives with emerging miners and BEE miners are in line with socio-economic transformation objectives, with a view to ensure that these miners are accommodated by Transnet for the transformation of the sector and for the benefit of all South Africans. This is especially with regard to the need to ensure that the rail infrastructure is principally used for the benefit of the populace. I now turn to the matters which are substantiated, where we've issued formal reports and we've issued remedial actions. There's a matter relating to Masiga under unfair or improper conduct versus the Department of Justice and Correctional Services. I investigated these allegations of maladministration against the Department of Justice and Correctional Services for failing to properly process a child maintenance application. The complaint was lodged on behalf of a minor child by Ms. Masiga in April 2017. She alleged that the department circumvented a prescribed mandatory procedure when processing an application for child maintenance at the Ganyisa Children's Court offices in the Northwest. I focused my investigations on two issues. Firstly, whether the department improperly failed to ensure that proper prescribed procedures were followed when processing this application for the period 2009 to 2016. I found these allegations to have been substantiated. And the second issue was whether the complainant or her minor were improperly prejudiced by the department's conduct in the circumstances. I found that this too is substantiated. To remedy this improper conduct and maladministration, I directed the Acting Director General of the Department of Justice and Correctional Services to, within 30 days from date of this report, ensure that disciplinary action is taken against all officials who are responsible for exposing the department to acts of maladministration or improper conduct in violation of the Maintenance Act. by failing to process the complainant's maintenance claim and ensuring that in the ensuing arrears. Within 30 days of this report, the acting DG must ensure that the officials involved are properly familiarized with the provisions of the Maintenance Act, with particular reference to speedy processing of maintenance applications to avoid maladministration. Further, to pay the complainant an amount of 23,000 as ex gratia as per the department's offer. So in this one, the department was willing to remedy that matter. This amount will be paid for, in fact, it's for a period of over 34 months as per the offer made by to the complainant. In addition, also within 30 working days from date of this report, the acting DG must write a letter of apology to the complainant, and we requested the minister to oversee that these remedial actions are implemented. There's another investigation under Ntsane versus the Master of the High Court. I investigated these allegations under the AJSD, where the Chief Master had to deal with the conduct of an attorney, Mr. Mkhwebane, who administered the estate of the late Mr. Ntsane, and the unfairness of Regulation 910 of the Attorneys, Notaries and Conveyancers Admission Act, which regulates the administration of deceased estate. The investigation came about as a result of a complaint by Ms. Ntsane, the widow of Mr. Ntsane. It was lodged with my office on 26 March 2018. After analyzing the complaint, I decided to investigate whether the Master of the High Court failed to address the unfairness of Regulation 9110 of the Attorneys Act, thereby prejudicing the complainant, and whether there was any undue delay on the part of the Master to render assistance to Ms. Ntsane to finalize the winding up of the estate of the late husband. I found that indeed the Master failed to address the unfairness of Regulation 910 of the Attorneys Act, thereby prejudicing the complainant. However, there was no delay on the part of the Master to render assistance to Ms. Ntsane to finalize the winding up of the estate of the late husband. Therefore, the allegation is unsubstantiated. In the circumstances, the remedial action I take in this matter is that the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development must, within 60 days from date of this report, initiate a process of reviewing Regulation 910 in its totality. The Minister also to consider allowing the Master to work within the ambit of the Administration of Estate Act on the appointment processes and role of the executor, and how the office of the Master can be of assistance to executors in the administration of estate. The acting Chief Master is directed to, within 30 working days from date of this report, develop a process manual that explains the role and responsibilities of the executors upon receipt of letters of executorship. The acting Chief Master must as well, within 30 days of the issue of this report, write a letter to Legal Practice Council.
That's the Public Protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, outlining some of the findings that they have done, releasing today the results from 35 investigations, and also letting us know that 13 matters have been set aside as unsubstantiated. We'll return to that briefing just after this break.
Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services. This matter was investigated after Mr. De Jong and 13 others lodged a complaint with the Public Protector. They were employed by the erstwhile Department of Post, Telecommunications and Broadcasting, and they voluntarily terminated their services and took severance packages between 1996 and 1997 to assist government to achieve its objective under the right sizing of the public service program. He alleged that when they exited they were, in terms of the conditions of their severance packages, entitled to post-termination monthly amount. But unfortunately, between May and June 2012, the employers' medical aid contributions to their medical aid funds was stopped, resulting in the suspension of their membership. When the subsidy resumed and their membership was restored, the employers' medical aid contribution was, in their review, unlawfully and improperly kept to a maximum of 1,014. So my investigation focused on two issues: whether the department unfairly and improperly resolved to alter the conditions pertaining to medical scheme assistance to Mr. Jong and 13 others. This allegation is substantiated. The second one, whether the conduct of the department caused him and others to suffer prejudice, and this is also substantiated. In terms of the report, the remedial action, we directed the DG of the department as a matter of agency to take necessary steps within 60 days to address the adverse financial impact of its ill-fated decision to cap its contribution to the medical aid scheme, and the DG must do so overseeing and implementing a proper process to reconcile and recalculate the difference. And further, the DG must make sure that he reimburses the affected parties when they were contributing from, in fact, they were contributing from their own pocket to the medical aid scheme, and paid the necessary interest. Matters will be investigated which relates to undue delay is Gilling versus Ilembe District Municipality. This report was investigated after a complaint was lodged relating to refunds for water purchases at Ilembe District Municipality in KwaZulu-Natal. The investigation was triggered by a complaint from Ms. Gilling. After analyzing the complaint, I considered two issues for investigation: whether the municipality delayed to refund the complainant for water credits and vouchers that she purchased when the prepaid water meters installed at her residence malfunctioned in 2016 and 2018. If so, whether the undue delay by the municipality was improper and whether it constituted maladministration and prejudiced the complainant. I found that the allegations were substantiated, and by way of remedial action, directed the municipal manager to furnish the complainant with a written apology for the undue delay in refunding her for the water credits and vouchers. And further, the municipal manager must further take urgent steps to establish an accessible and effective mechanism to address and remedy complaints pertaining to such a refund, and monitor response time, efficiency of these mechanisms, report to the council on the establishment of such mechanisms. So by reporting to the council, at least that will be institutionalized within the municipality. The next matter relates to Mr. Peterson against the South African National Defence Force. It was an undue delay, maladministration, improper conduct by the SANDF, SAPS, and the Compensation Fund with regard to an investigation onto the death of Lieutenant Daniel Peterson and the reporting, processing, and payment of the Compensation Fund benefits. The complaint was lodged by the deceased mother, Ms. Peterson, who alleged that he was the member of, in fact, Daniel was a member of SADF who collapsed while participating in an exercise marathon in 1998 and was rushed to hospital in George, Western Cape, where he died as a result of heat stroke. He had been comatose at the time of his passing. She also alleged that SAPS in Oudtshoorn investigated her son's death and promised to keep her abreast, but failed to do so. She further alleged that SANDF held a military board of inquiry to her son's death and never informed her of the outcome. In addition to this, Ms. Peterson alleged that SANDF failed to timeously report her claim for payment of compensation benefits to the Compensation Fund and that the fund also failed to attend to the claim and unduly delayed to process the payments of the benefits. I decided to investigate 5 issues. The first one, whether SAPS delayed to investigate the death of the deceased and keep the complainant informed. In the absence of substantive evidence, I could not make a determination on the alleged undue delay, but I find that SAPS failed to keep the complainant informed about progress in the investigation. The second issue is against SANDF for delaying the finalization of the military board inquiry into the deceased death and failed to communicate the findings to the complainant. This undue delay allegations is not substantiated. However, SANDF did fail to inform the complainant about the inquiry findings. The third issue relates to whether SANDF failed to timeously report the claim to the compensation fund and to submit comprehensive documents for the fund for the processing and payment of compensation benefits to the complainant found the allegation to be substantiated. Fourth, whether the fund delayed to process the claim for compensation benefits. And fifth, whether the complainant was unfairly prejudiced by the conduct of SAPS, SANDF, and the fund. These allegations are substantiated, and indeed Ms. Peterson suffered improper prejudice. To remedy this, I directed the National Commission of SAPS to consider amending the standing orders to provide for informing the next of kin of progress made in an inquest investigation, and apologize in writing to Ms. Peterson for the failure to keep her informed of progress in the inquest investigation. The chief of the SANDF is also directed to issue a written apology to Ms. Peterson for failure to inform her of the outcome of the board of inquiry into her son's death. Lastly, the compensation commissioner must apologize as well to Ms. Peterson for the delay to process and pay compensation benefits to her within a reasonable time. Reports relating to abuse of power, we have Mkhwebane versus Rustenburg Local Municipality, where there was an allegation that law enforcement officials at the Rustenburg Local Municipality in the northwest unlawfully removed the telephone containers belonging to Mr. Patrick Mkhwebane from the main taxi rank in the mining town during a midnight raid on the facility in May 2010. According to Mr. Mkhwebane, all 4 containers, which allegedly housed a total of 13 prepaid telephone sets that him and his wife used to run a public phone business from the facility, were damaged beyond repair during their removal from the premises. Mr. Mkhwebane also alleged that he lost several other items, including cash of 200 rands, and he alleged that all these were the damage he suffered were up to the tune of 260,000, though he did not have a permit to run the business. The investigation focused on 2 issues: whether the actions of the municipality in removing the containers were unlawful. The allegations were found to be substantiated. The second issue, Mr. Mkhwebane suffered prejudice, and that matter was also substantiated. To remedy this conduct and maladministration, I directed the municipal manager to apologize in writing to the complainant, submit this report to council for consideration, and return the 4 containers to the complainant in the same condition they were at the time of removal. Alternatively, the municipal manager must obtain the quotations in respect of the damaged containers and compensate Mr. Mkhwebane in line with the least expensive of the quotations. Mhlahla versus Gauteng Department of Housing and Human Settlement. The allegation or the complaint by Mhlahla was the unlawful demolition of the house belonging to Mr. Mhlahla by Gauteng Department of Housing and Human Settlement. The house was allegedly razed to the ground in 2017 December by the Red Ants, who were contracted by the department. Mr. Mhlahla alleged that he built the house at his own expense in Atteridgeville, west of Pretoria, at a stand allocated by the city of Tshwane. I looked into the matter, the Gauteng office looked into the matter of the unlawful demolition of the house, and the investigation revealed that both these allegations are substantiated, and the remedy, to remedy this improper and maladministration, the department will rebuild Mr. Mhlahla's house. He has agreed to this, and the parties agreed that the settlement agreement constitutes my findings and remedial action in this matter. Muthusi versus Ngata Mudiri, Mulemo District Municipality. This complaint relates to alleged refusal and undue delay by the municipality to pay the company called Health and Hygiene Services for an amount of about 132,000 and 159,000 for services rendered and for the use of the company's equipment respectively. In essence, the complainant alleged that in August, a company was awarded a 3-year contract to render hygiene services, including the supply of air fresheners and sanitizers, toilet seat sanitizers, urinal and water closet sanitizers, etc. In May 2013, the company allegedly received a letter from the municipal manager advising the company to temporarily cease rendering the services. However, later that month, a meeting was held between the parties, and the municipality agreed that the company should commence with the rendering services. Pursuant to the agreement with the supply chain manager, the company rendered the service until January 2014. It allegedly ceased rendering services because the municipality failed to pay them since 2013 May.